My feminization ended with breasts. The elevator doors opened, and the first thing that hit me was the smell. Soft perfume, faint floral, something that made my chest tighten in a way I hadn't expected. She was standing there, poised like she owned the floor, holding a small box wrapped in glossy paper. Her smile wasn't warm. It was sharp, calculated, and somehow magnetic. "You're just in time," she said, stepping aside. "It's your turn now." Curiosity clawed at me, but so did panic. The box was light, yet heavy with unspoken promises. I tore it open. Inside lay a dress that seemed almost unreal, pale lavender, flowing, delicate lace at the edges. Alongside it, a pair of shoes, high, elegant, and frightening in their potential. A note fell out, simple, blunt. "Tonight, you meet yourself." The words echoed in my head as I stared at the reflection in the glass panel across the lobby. My body felt like it belonged to someone else already, trembling under the weight of anticipation. Slipping into the dress felt like stepping through a door into another life. Every brush of the fabric against my skin awakened something I didn't know was there. My fingers traced the contours cautiously, a mix of disbelief and fascination washing over me. The shoes were the final step. Standing, wobbling slightly, I realized the world seemed taller, sharper, and more scrutinizing all at once. Every sound felt louder, every movement more exposed. And yet, a thrill coursed through me, undeniable, electrifying. I glanced at her again. Her gaze lingered, approving but testing, as if she could already see who I was becoming. A mirror on the wall caught my attention, and I hesitated. The face looking back at me was partly mine, partly something else entirely, softer, curvier, undeniably feminine. My chest shifted awkwardly in the dress, a subtle but unmistakable swell beneath the fabric, and a strange, disorienting rush of identity hit me. For the first time, the reflection didn't just reflect, it demanded acknowledgement. She leaned closer, whispering, "By the time you step out of this room, nothing will ever be the same." The words were a dare, a challenge, and a promise all at once. My heartbeat thundered as the reality sank in. Tonight, the transformation wasn't just about clothes. It was about unveiling a version of me that had waited in silence, hidden behind fear, hesitation, and old habits. And I had no choice but to face it. The first step out of the lobby felt like walking on a tightrope. Every click of the heels against the polished floor echoed like a warning. People glanced, some curious, some indifferent, but none could see what was happening beneath the surface. The subtle shifting of my body, the strange new weight on my chest, the way my shoulders felt narrower yet more delicate, as if the world itself had changed its rules for me. I reached the corridor, where fluorescent lights stretched like long, unforgiving fingers. My reflection in a nearby glass panel startled me again. The face staring back was no longer just mine. The eyes, wide and alert, held a mixture of fear, disbelief, and something dangerously thrilling. My lips felt softer, my jawline less harsh. And then there was the chest, the bra shaping it in a way that made it impossible to ignore, impossible to deny. Each step caused a subtle bounce, a gentle reminder that my transformation wasn't just skin deep. A voice called out from the end of the hall. "Ready?" It was hers, calm, expectant, yet edged with that same calculated sharpness. I swallowed hard, my throat dry. Every instinct screamed to flee, to rip off the dress and pretend none of this had ever happened. But curiosity, that relentless spark, pushed me forward. We entered a small room, sparsely decorated, with a single mirror mounted on the wall. The moment I stepped inside, the door clicked shut behind me, and the air seemed to thicken. She gestured toward the mirror, and my reflection drew me in like a magnet. Slowly, deliberately, she produced a small brush and began to apply makeup. Each stroke altered me subtly, yet profoundly. Cheeks flushed with color, eyes lined to emphasize a shape that now seemed to belong entirely to someone else, lips tinted with a delicate rose hue. I could barely recognize the person emerging in the mirror. Every brushstroke peeled away layers of the me I had known, revealing a version I hadn't dared imagine. Panic and exhilaration tangled together, a storm I could neither escape nor resist. The chest beneath the fabric pressed forward, undeniable now, demanding acknowledgement, making me acutely aware of every movement, every breath. She stepped back, assessing her work, her eyes sharp and calculating. "Almost there," she said softly, but the tone carried more than words. It was a promise. "One last thing." From a small box, she revealed a delicate necklace, the chain thin, the pendant a tiny, glimmering charm. She fastened it around my neck, and the sensation sent a shiver down my spine. Somehow, it completed the transformation, not just outwardly but inwardly, cementing the shift in ways I couldn't yet articulate. I stared at myself again, and for the first time, I saw potential, possibility, and fear all in the same reflection. The dress, the makeup, the necklace. They weren't just items. They were keys, unlocking something buried deep, something I hadn't even known I was longing for. My pulse raced. The night was only beginning, and already, nothing would ever be the same. The moment the door opened again, reality slammed into me like a thunderclap. The hallway was brighter, louder, filled with people whose gazes now seemed to slice through me. Every step I took in heels felt amplified, exaggerated, like the world was watching my every move, and in a way it was. The dress clung to curves I'd never noticed before, curves that made my chest feel heavier, more pronounced with every movement. My hands gripped the fabric instinctively, trying to keep it under control, but the sway of my hips betrayed me, announcing my presence in a way I hadn't anticipated. A group of colleagues passed by, their expressions flickering between surprise, amusement, and something harder to define, curiosity? Admiration? I didn't know, and that uncertainty gnawed at me. The reflection in the elevator doors caught me mid-step, and my breath caught in my throat. The person looking back wasn't just a version of me. I was deliberate, exposed, undeniably visible. The makeup softened my face, the wig framed it, and the bra beneath the dress accentuated a chest that I could no longer ignore. Every movement sent tiny shocks through my body, a reminder that the change wasn't temporary. It was real. Then came her voice, cutting through the hum of the office. "Walk with confidence. Every second counts." My pulse spiked. Confidence? I didn't have any. Not yet. But I forced myself forward, each step a test, each glance at a reflection a challenge. People were watching, I could feel it, and the tension tightened like a vice. Suddenly, a colleague approached, smiling politely, oblivious to the storm inside me. "Are you okay?" The words, innocent as they seemed, made my stomach twist. Could I admit the truth? Could I tell her that tonight I wasn't the same person who had walked into this building hours ago? That every step, every glance, every soft sway of the dress had peeled away the old. I shook my head quickly, forcing a laugh that sounded higher, lighter, more feminine than my usual tone. Yet just trying something new. The lie felt fragile, almost ridiculous, but it was all I had. And yet, beneath the fear, a thrill surged. Power, maybe. A dangerous, intoxicating power. People could see me, yes, but they hadn't yet named me. They didn't yet own me. The hallways seemed endless. Every door I passed, every mirrored panel, reflected my new form, my new identity, back at me. And with every reflection, every step, I felt the subtle but undeniable pressure of change. My chest, soft yet pronounced beneath the fabric, the way my movements demanded attention, the gentle sway of hair that hadn't existed before. The reality hit me fully. This wasn't just an experiment. This was me stepping into a life I hadn't dared imagine, and the world was watching. Her voice came again, closer now, softer yet unmistakable. "Are you ready to truly see yourself?" And in that moment, I realized I wasn't just walking down a hallway. I was stepping into a mirror I couldn't leave, a reflection that was about to define everything I thought I knew about who I was. The room was dim, lit only by a single lamp that cast long shadows across the walls, But it didn't matter. The spotlight was on me, whether I wanted it or not. She closed the door behind us with a decisive click, and suddenly, the hum of the office, the outside world, everything fell away. Only the mirror remained, vast and unflinching, reflecting the version of me I hadn't known existed until tonight. She stepped closer, her eyes locked on mine in the reflection. "You've come far," she said, almost a whisper, but her voice carried authority, promise, and something electric I couldn't place. But this is the part where the change becomes undeniable. Before I could respond, she handed me a small, silky vest, lighter than air, meant to accentuate the chest beneath my dress. Hesitation curled in my stomach. My hands shook as I fitted it over the bra, over the curves that were no longer subtle. Every adjustment made my chest more visible, more pronounced. My heart raced. Every beat reminded me of how impossible it was to go back to the old me, how permanent this shift felt. Then came the final step. She produced a small vial of lotion, telling me to apply it gently over my chest. Her instructions were precise, almost ritualistic. "This will finalize the shape," she said. My fingers brushed against my skin, warm from the application, and a surreal heat spread through my body. I gasped, not from pain, but from shock at how real it all felt. I could feel the subtle swelling, the undeniable fullness forming beneath the fabric, and it made my knees weak. The mirror reflected every change. My chest, now fully developed, shifted naturally with each movement. The dress clung differently, the silhouette altered in a way that was mesmerizing and terrifying all at once. I touched it, incredulous, tracing the contours that had never existed, and my reflection stared back at me with unflinching truth. This wasn't a costume. This was my body, my identity, my transformation. She smiled, almost triumphantly. "Now you see," she said, her voice soft but charged. "This is the version of you waiting to emerge. And there's no turning back." Panic, excitement, and a strange, thrilling pride collided inside me. My fingers lingered over the curves I had always imagined but never dared approach. Every movement, every sway of the dress, every glance at the mirror confirmed it. I was no longer the person who had walked into this building hours ago. I was something new, something shocking, something utterly feminine. And the world outside that door would see me this way. A knock at the door startled me. "Are you ready?" she asked again. Her tone left no room for hesitation. I took a deep breath, one that trembled, and nodded. My reflection didn't flinch. Neither did I. Tonight, everything changed, and nothing would ever feel ordinary again. The door opened, and the fluorescent lights of the office felt harsh, almost accusing. Each step in my heels echoed like a drumbeat, announcing my presence in a world that suddenly seemed alien. People turned, some with surprise, some with amusement, but the stares cut sharper than I expected. My chest, fully transformed, was impossible to ignore beneath the dress, and every movement reminded me that this wasn't an experiment anymore. This was real. A familiar colleague approached, her eyes widening. "Wow, you look different," she said, her voice trailing off. I forced a laugh, higher pitched than usual, fragile yet deliberate. "Yet trying something new," I muttered. The lie felt absurd, but it was all I had. Inside, a storm raged, pride, fear, disbelief, and an odd thrill that I couldn't name. The whispers started almost immediately. I could hear them behind me, hushed conversations, glances that lingered too long. Each comment, each sideways glance, twisted in my stomach, part humiliation, part exhilaration. The reflection of myself in the glass doors ahead showed a stranger I couldn't fully recognize, and yet, every inch of me felt undeniably alive, undeniably feminine. She appeared then, standing at the far end of the room, eyes sharp and unreadable. The same woman who had guided me, who had orchestrated this transformation, gave a slow, deliberate nod. It wasn't approval exactly, it was recognition. A test. "Keep walking," she said. "Own it." My steps faltered, and panic surged. Could I really face the world like this? Could I accept the curves, the chest, the delicate shape I now carried as my own? A sharp laugh rang out from a coworker, followed by a murmur of agreement from the cluster of people nearby. Heat surged to my face, humiliation threatening to swallow me. Yet, beneath it, a pulse of something else, the undeniable thrill of being seen, of being alive in a form I had never allowed myself to explore. Every movement became a statement. Each sway of my hips, each careful placement of my hands over the dress was a negotiation with myself and the world. My reflection in the glass ahead seemed to cheer me silently. You exist. You're here. You belong. And then someone I hadn't expected approached, eyes wide, almost shaking. Is that really you? The disbelief in their voice cut through me, sharper than any whisper, louder than any judgment. I swallowed hard, the weight of my transformation pressing on me, and for a moment, all I could do was nod. The room seemed to hold its breath, the world suspended between shock and awe. I realized then, fully and irreversibly, this wasn't just a dress, a bra, or makeup. This was a revelation. My body, my form, my identity had shifted into something new, undeniable, and utterly visible. And there was no turning back. The office felt smaller now, every glance from a coworker like a spotlight on me. At first, I had tried to shrink into myself, hoping to hide behind the dress, the heels, the careful posture I'd forced into place. But it was impossible. My chest pressed forward, soft yet undeniable. Every movement a reminder that this wasn't temporary, wasn't a costume I could remove. Every reflection I caught, from glass panels, monitors, even the shiny floor, echoed the truth. I was no longer who I had been this morning. She appeared beside me quietly, almost imperceptibly, her presence commanding without needing to speak. "Feel it," she whispered. Her eyes were sharp, unreadable, yet there was something almost approving in her gaze. "The change isn't just outside. You feel it, don't you?" I swallowed hard, heart pounding in my chest, because I did feel it. The subtle weight on my chest, the gentle sway of my hips, the softness of my hands against the fabric. It wasn't just new, it was me. Every step I took, every breath I drew, carried that realization deeper into my bones. And with it came a strange, terrifying pride. The whispers behind me had grown louder, but I couldn't focus on them anymore. I was too aware of the reflection in the glass across the room, of the way my own eyes looked back at me. Curious, cautious, and undeniably feminine. I ran my fingers along the neckline of the dress, feeling the gentle swell of my chest beneath my fingertips. My body felt foreign and familiar all at once. A coworker passed by, giving me a second glance, and I realized I didn't flinch. I didn't hide. I held my posture, straightened my shoulders, lifted my chin. Confidence, awkward, trembling, yet real, crept into my movements. I was walking in a version of myself that was stronger, more visible, more daring than I had ever been. She handed me a small compact mirror, and for the first time, I truly looked at myself, not just the face, the hair, or the dress, but the entirety of this transformed self. My chest, soft and full, rose and fell with each breath. The curves of my body, delicate yet defined, moved naturally with me. And I realized, fully, that this was permanent. The lotion, the dress, the guidance, it wasn't reversible. This was me now, undeniably, irrevocably. A thrill surged through me, laced with fear, exhilaration, and something like liberation. My hands rested over the curves I had once only imagined, my eyes drinking in the reflection. The world outside was still waiting, judgmental and curious, but for the first time, I felt ready. This wasn't just about being seen. This was about finally seeing myself. And as she stepped back, letting me linger in that private, surreal moment, I knew the transformation wasn't just physical. It was an awakening. Every heartbeat, every step, every breath confirmed it. My feminization had reached its pinnacle. My body, my chest, my presence, they were all real. And nothing would ever allow me to pretend otherwise. The office door swung open, and the hallway felt impossibly long. Whispers rippled like currents around me, each one a sharp reminder that the world outside my reflection had noticed the change. Heads turned, eyes widened, and some coworkers tried to hide their stares behind polite smiles, but there was no hiding the truth. My chest, full and unmistakable beneath the dress, drew attention I couldn't ignore, and each sway of my hips seemed magnified under the bright lights. A group of colleagues gathered near the break room, exchanging glances I could almost read like a script. Curiosity, surprise, judgment, it all mixed together, and suddenly I felt exposed, vulnerable in ways I had never imagined. The fear clawed at me, urging me to retreat, to vanish back into a version of myself that had been safe and invisible. But the reflection in the glass panel across the hall reminded me of something new, something stronger. This was who I was now. Then, a voice, sharp, incredulous, impossible to ignore, cut through the murmurs. "Wait, is that really you?" A coworker, someone I had known for years, stepped forward, disbelief written all over her face. The words hung in the air, heavy, electric. My pulse skyrocketed. Every instinct screamed to explain, to justify, to hide, but there was no excuse, no denial that could undo what had been done. I took a breath, forcing my posture upright, lifting my chin. "Yes," I said, my voice trembling slightly, but carrying through the hall. The words felt strange yet right, a declaration I hadn't expected to be able to make. The room seemed to hold its breath, waiting for what would come next. Some faces softened with curiosity, others tightened with judgment, but all eyes were on me. The reflection in the glass beside me caught my attention. My chest rose and fell naturally, the curves of my body accentuated in ways I could no longer ignore. Each movement reminded me of the transformation, of the weight, the softness, the undeniable femininity that now defined me. And with every heartbeat, a strange mix of fear, pride, and exhilaration surged through me. She, my guide, my orchestrator, my landlady, appeared at my side, eyes calm and assessing. "Stand tall," she said quietly. "They can see you, but only you can own it." Her words struck a chord deep inside me. It wasn't about hiding or blending in. It was about being visible, unflinching, unashamed. The world would notice, and I would respond, not as the person I had been, but as the person I had become. Another colleague, more daring this time, stepped closer. You look completely different," he said, awe and uncertainty mingling in his tone. I smiled, nervous, tentative, but genuine. The reflection in the glass reflected it all: chest, curves, eyes, lips, every inch of the feminine form I had discovered tonight. And for the first time, the fear of being seen mingled with a fierce pride. Every whisper, every glance, every heartbeat confirmed it. This wasn't temporary. This wasn't a costume. This was me. My feminization had reached the point where hiding was impossible, denying was futile, and embracing was the only choice. And the world was finally forced to see it too. The office seemed to shrink around me, the whispers fading into a dull hum as my eyes locked on my own reflection in the glass across the room. My chest rose and fell beneath the dress, soft, full, undeniable, and every movement reminded me of how completely different my body had become. The curves, the hips, the delicate lines of my arms and shoulders, they weren't temporary, they weren't a joke, and they certainly weren't going away. She stepped beside me, calm, almost serene, and laid a hand lightly on my shoulder. "Do you see it now?" she asked softly. "This is who you are." Her words were simple, but they struck with the force of a revelation. The mirror didn't lie. The chest beneath the fabric, the gentle swell, the soft lines of my body, they all confirmed the truth I had been running from all day. This was no longer an experiment. My feminization was complete. I touched my chest, feeling the weight, the subtle bounce, the undeniable reality of it. A shiver ran through me, a mix of disbelief, awe, and something like pride. My reflection stared back with wide, curious eyes that belonged fully to someone else, yet somehow still to me. And the most shocking realization settled in. This wasn't just skin deep. Every fiber of my being had shifted, every instinct, every hesitation, every movement now carried the rhythm of this new form. The world around me began to feel both distant and immediate at the same time. Whispers, glances, surprised faces, they all existed, but they no longer controlled me. I was visible, undeniable, and I could either shrink or stand tall. And for the first time, the choice felt exhilarating rather than terrifying. A colleague stepped closer, hesitating, and said softly, almost in awe, I can't believe it. You look amazing." My lips curved into a shaky, genuine smile. The words weren't just a compliment. They were proof that the transformation wasn't just physical. It commanded recognition. It demanded to be acknowledged. I took a slow breath, letting my hands rest over the curves I had once feared. Every part of me, from the soft swell of my chest to the delicate contours of my hips, was real, irrevocable, and mine to carry. The reflection in the glass seemed to nod back at me, confirming it, whispering the truth I had avoided for so long. There was no going back. This was who I was now, fully, undeniably. Her hand slipped from my shoulder, and she gave a small, approving smile. "The world will notice," she said. "But you own it." And in that moment, as I stared at the mirror, I realized she was right. My feminization hadn't just changed my body, it had rewritten how I saw myself, how I moved through the world, and how I would face every gaze from now on. My chest, my curves, my reflection, they were no longer secrets. They were my declaration. A thrill surged through me, equal parts fear and liberation. Every glance I caught, every whisper I overheard, became background noise to the truth. I had stepped through a door I could never close. And the person looking back at me in the mirror wasn't someone new. She was me. The office had grown quiet around me, the whispers fading into nothing more than a faint hum. The stares, the curiosity, the disbelief, they no longer mattered. Every step I took in my heels, every sway of my hips, every subtle movement of my chest beneath the dress reminded me that the change was real, permanent, and irrevocable. I had crossed a line I could never unstep, and strangely, I no longer wanted to. I caught my reflection in the large glass panel again. The woman looking back at me, soft curves, delicate shoulders, full chest, confident eyes, was undeniably me. It wasn't a costume, a dare, or a temporary thrill. It was the truest version of myself I had ever known, hidden under years of fear and hesitation. And now, she was impossible to ignore. She appeared beside me one last time, the orchestrator of this transformation, the guide who had pushed me into this new life. Her expression was unreadable at first, then softened. "It's yours now," she said, her voice quiet but resonant. "Every glance, every movement, every heartbeat, you own it." I ran my fingers over the gentle swell of my chest, feeling its weight, its undeniable presence. A rush of emotion surged through me. Fear, yes, but also liberation, pride, and a strange, exhilarating joy. Every heartbeat, every breath confirmed it. This wasn't just a change of appearance. This was a declaration. The world outside awaited, curious, judgmental, unknowing, but it no longer held power over me. I had faced the reflection, embraced the body, accepted the transformation, and claimed it as my own. The dress, the heels, the curves, they weren't masks. They were proof. Proof that I had stepped into a life that was mine to inhabit fully. As I took one final glance at my reflection, the room seemed to brighten, the shadows retreating. My chest rose and fell beneath the dress, every subtle movement a reminder of who I had become. And in that instant, a strange, triumphant clarity settled over me. Nothing would ever feel ordinary again. I turned, heels clicking confidently against the floor, and faced the world with a new identity, a new presence, a new power. My feminization had reached its peak. My chest, my curves, my reflection, they were no longer secrets. They were my declaration. And as the door opened to the world beyond, I realized something both terrifying and exhilarating. The woman in the mirror wasn't just someone I had become. She was me, and the world would have to notice.